All right, so I'm doing impromptu on the abstract word power. So power can really be defined as a whole lot of things. It comes in lots of different forms. One of these forms, of course, is government. There's lots of governments out there. Lots of them are quite powerful, some of them not so much, and usually the powerful ones kind of have more influence than the other ones. That's obvious. Everyone knows that. Another form of power is economic. Um, Obviously, people who have money and people who control businesses, they have a lot of influence over the way our society functions and how everyone lives their lives. And another form of power that quickly comes to mind when people think of power is electric. Obviously, we need electricity to function and have our machines all work, our computers, especially in times like these. We need electricity and electric power to function. Um, so, in a lot of ways, power is really what defines our world. It gives people control. It allows people to subject other people to their will and it, use their influence in the world. But the question that I want to ask is just how does one get this power? How does one obtain this control over the world? Obviously, when you ask that question, one of the first things that comes to mind, obviously, is money. When you look at rich people, famous people, a lot of them, before they're famous or once they're famous, they get more famous because they have money. They gain power through gaining money. Take Donald Trump, for example. When he was born, he didn't have nearly as much money as he had today, but he used the money he did have. He wasn't poor off by any means, but he used the money his parents gave him, and he used his skills to gain more money, and he used that money to gain more money until he became very wealthy. And with that wealth, he used his influence to become a public celebrity, as well as he used using his influence to become the president of the United States, which is a very powerful position. Um, but just having money doesn't really get you power, per se. Uh, you also need a lot of other features to actually have true power and to use your money effectively to gain more power. Uh, One of those main factors that you need to use the money well is knowledge. If Donald Trump didn't have any business sense or didn't have any just general sense, he wouldn't have been able to use the money, regardless of had he been born with $0 to his name or a billion. Like, he wouldn't have been able to actually use that money to gain any power or used his money to subject people to his will. But as he is not completely stupid with business, he was able to use that money to gain more money, and he used his knowledge in business and with people to make more money and make more power, and he used his knowledge to become president eventually. Um, but when you look at knowledge and you think of the phrase knowledge is power, how do you know that someone is powerful if they're not speaking to you or writing or creating art or films or something that lets you know that they have knowledge and therefore power? And that leads me to my third ingredient for true power, and that is communication. When we look throughout history, there's many times where communication has become a big thing in creating power for civilizations and individuals alike. Um, when we look at the creation of speech, for example, there were tribes running around. They communicated with each other through grunts and groans and uh, signals and that kind of thing, but they didn't really have any way of creating higher thought and communicating higher thoughts to one another. But once speech came about, all of a sudden their tribe had a leg up on the animals they might have been hunting, or the environment, or on other tribes themselves, and they were able to use this to gain power. And all of a sudden, traditions were able to be passed down, and so all of a sudden, people had power over their descendants, and they were able to subject their influence on people that they might never meet through speech and the passage of oral tradition. And that same sort of thing happened much more effectively with the invention of writing. As writing was invented, all of a sudden now traditions can be passed down for much longer, and decrees can be sent out from kings to the farthest reaches of their kingdoms. And all of a sudden, they have more power over more people because they can communicate. And the more effective someone can communicate, whether it be through speech or through writing, all of a sudden people are more drawn to them, and they have a better sense of how powerful that person is because they are able to display it effectively. Same goes with the invention of the printing press or the telegraph. The Catholic Church ruled the world basically until the printing press came about, and all of a sudden these writers were able to get their ideas out, and they were able to undermine the power and eventually take down the power of the Catholic Church, who had been the basically the sole provider of knowledge for the people of the time. And all of a sudden people were able to build their knowledge through communication, and as they built knowledge, they were able to gain power and money, and all of them came together to build more and more power. And this is shown again with the invention of the telephone and the telegraph, and again recently with the internet, as all of a sudden people are able to communicate with people on the other side of the world instantly, instead of having to write a letter or write a book and hope it gets to them. Now all of a sudden we can reach anyone at the touch of a button. And that's really amazing because it makes power a lot more spread out individually, and people who might not have money, for example, all of a sudden they are able to be influential on other people, and that's really important. So basically, power is a lot of things, and it comes with a lot of different thoughts from people, but really it comes down to money, knowledge, and communication. Thank you for watching.